Once again, everyone, good evening. Thank you for joining us. I did link in the chat, and I'll link it one more time, tonight's presentation that we'll be drawing from. There are some links embedded in there that you may want to refer back to at various points. It'll also be shared in the same way you might have gotten a text message reminder about this meeting. We'll also be sharing this presentation with everyone in the same way after the meeting. This meeting is also being recorded, so if for whatever reason you get booted out or have to leave early, we'll be able to send it to you then and share it again another time. I'm going to give one more minute for all families and students to get here, and then we'll get started. Okay, so good evening, everyone, and thanks again for joining us. My name is Joe Kautzer, or Mr. K. I'm the principal at Bowie High School, and I am really excited to be speaking with you all tonight because you all have opted in to return for in-person learning at Bowie High School in just a short period of time. We're really excited that you've made this decision, and we're really excited to welcome your students back in the building starting April 8th or 12th or the 15th. We'll talk about those dates in a little while. Before I get started though, I want to give a moment for the administrative members and team members who are here with me tonight to be able to introduce themselves. So team, if you wouldn't mind please unmuting and saying hi.
Good evening, Maureen Delaney, Assistant Principal, working with our senior class of 2021.
Hey, good evening. My name is Joshua Jackson, Assistant Principal with 9th grade.
Good evening, Lonice Priester, Assistant Principal, 11th grade students.
Hello, everybody. Darren Lee. I cross all grades. I am the Special Education Administrator at Bowie High School.
I know that Miss Mahoney, there we go.
Yeah, I was giving Jackson a chance. Hello, everyone. I am Miss Mahoney, and I am 10th grade administrator, letters A through K.
Thank you. I know Miss Gant may be joining us. She also works with our 10th grade students a little bit later, and Miss King is trying to get in right now as well, who works with our 9th grade students. Again, parents, I'm Joe Kautzer, Mr. K, principal of Bowie High School. It's my first year, and I'm proud to welcome all of you back into the building for the first time. For some students, the very first time. For others, it's been over a year. So really excited to have this conversation with everyone tonight. The objectives for tonight's meeting are really this. We want to give everyone just a general overview of what is the typical school day going to look like in this hybrid learning environment. I want you to be able to walk away from this meeting with that in mind. Second, we want to give you a general rundown of what the expectations are going to be, because it's not going to be the same as it always was. And we already know that, but we want to talk about what those differences are. And lastly, we want to make sure you walk away with knowing what type of things do we want you all to bring to school. Okay, so what can you expect from a typical day, and what do we want you to bring to be prepared for teaching and learning in this new hybrid environment? And so forgive me, I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, and we will have time for some general questions and answers towards the end. And throughout, the administrative team is going to be monitoring the chat. So the chat is open, and you're allowed to ask questions in there throughout the entirety of the presentation. We may not get to all of them, but we will do our best and answer what we can. We may not know answers to every single question, but where we don't, we will find them and get back to you. Okay, so right now we're in this little bit of period of time before students are expected to return back to learn, in-person learning. Next week we have spring break, but then shortly thereafter, starting Thursday, April 8th, we're going to start welcoming some of our students back to Bowie High School. And if you haven't already, this is linked here And it's already on the Prince George's County website. Do take a minute. It's a 2-minute video. We're not going to watch it here together, but it's an excellent video produced by the district that gives a very nice overview of all the things that we're going to be talking about tonight. But this meeting here tonight is really Bowie High School specific, okay? But know this, throughout the district and at Bowie High School, that we have 2 cohorts of students in the hybrid model, and it's organized by last name. And so students who have last names A through J will be allowed to be in person in the buildings on Mondays and Tuesdays. Students with last names K through Z will be in our Thursday, Friday cohort. All Wednesdays for the remainder of the school year are telework virtual learning Wednesdays. So no students should be coming into the buildings on Wednesdays, regardless of what your last name is. But starting on Thursday, April 8th, we're going to be welcoming only our 12th grade students who have opted in, along with all special education students with the last name K through Z. So again, if your last name starts with an A, you do not come in on Thursday, April 8th. Your first day would be Monday, April 12th. So on Monday, April 12th is when only 12th grade students and special ed students, last names A through J, are welcome to come into the building. Our Mondays are A days, our Tuesdays are B days, just like they have been all year long. That is not changing. Our Thursdays are A days, our Fridays are B days, just like they've been all year long. And that isn't changing either. But then fast forward to Thursday, April 15th, okay? And that's the day when all students, regardless of status or grade level, that all students grades 9 through 12 are welcome to return as long as they've opted in. But that will be students with last names A through J only on Monday the 12th, okay? And then Thursday the 15th, all students who have opted in K through Z are welcome to return. And we're going to continue that ebb and flow, the cohort model, for the remainder of the school year. Okay. Something we would like all students to do prior to arrival, and I recommend you go ahead and just do it today or over spring break, is get on SchoolMax right now and either take a screenshot on your cell phone, or if you do pen and paper, print it the old-fashioned way. Print the student's schedule in SchoolMax, because for the first time this year, their classroom numbers are going to be relevant. They're going to need to know where their classes are. All right, so they might have been in these classes all year long, but they've never had to find the classroom before. So they need to print their schedules, access them, and know exactly where to find the teachers in the rooms, and the room numbers are all clearly printed in SchoolMax if you print up the student schedule. So I want to pause right here, team. Have there been any questions on this particular information or this slide that we want to hit before we keep on moving? Okay. Great. So that's what I want you to be thinking about and what we're looking forward to prior to returning in person starting April 8th. What should students bring to school each day? Well, because face coverings must be worn at all times except for when they're eating lunch. Okay, we want students to bring multiple clean face masks every day. Okay, why do we say multiple? Well, we know things happen throughout the day, or if you've been wearing one long enough, sometimes they start sliding off your face and that just can start happening. So we say multiple ones to be able to avoid any accidents or problems. It is true also that the school will have disposable ones on hand should a student need one. But it's worth noting that a student will not be able to get onto a bus or get into the building without wearing a mask. Okay, that is a requirement throughout the entire school district. We're asking all students to also please bring a bottle of water. And I recommend just getting a reusable bottle of water, and you fill that up every night or morning before you come to school, because all common drinking fountains, all water fountains, by rule of the local health department, they are all turned off. It's considered a bit of a health hazard to be sharing those types of drinking spaces. So we are asking all families and students to please come prepared with just a bottle of drinking water that you're going to bring every day. Additionally, all students, we are moving to a one-to-one compatibility, that all students should be getting or have a PGCPS issued Chromebook computer and charger. Okay, we ask that students, they need to bring that to school every single day, and they should be showing up with it fully charged every single day. Okay, that is where the learning and interaction between students is still going to happen. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but one thing I want everyone to know is that a little more than 75% of our students are going to be remaining virtual throughout all of this, which means that the primary mode of interaction between students and teachers is still going to be via computer and online. So knowing that, it's going to be critical that in order for students to be able to engage with the teachers, in order for them to turn in assignments, it's still going to be done through the computer, even though they will be in a classroom with the teacher in front of them. We are also asking all students to please bring a pair of headphones with them that they can connect to their computer. And you might ask, well, why is that? Normally, we would never want students to be wearing headphones during the school day, and actually it can be a real thorn in a teacher's side. However, in this particular hybrid environment, particularly because the majority or at least half of the students are going to be at home, something we're really concerned about is if, I don't know if you've ever shared a space with two people on a virtual Zoom platform before, but there's a lot of sound feedback. If multiple people have the volume on at the same time and it's audible and someone's talking into the microphone and it's getting into multiple microphones at the same time, you start to get that feedback noise. And so something that will become a critical instructional tool is having headphones, ideally headphones with a microphone connected to them as well. Now, if a student does not have one, we should be able to provide them. We have a limited supply that we are able to hand out and give to students, but we do not quite have enough for everyone. And so we have to work with what we have. And so we're hoping that we can offset some of our limited supply with families being able to bring their own. You don't need to go out and purchase anything expensive. Many students already have their own headphones that they're using for various reasons, but you can also find, even at an Office Depot or a Best Buy, a very inexpensive, almost like an old Walkman cassette player, over the ear headset variety for less than $10. But again, not a required purchase. We will have some if you don't have one, but it will be really helpful if you do. I'd also like to say that backpacks will be allowed, and that would be encouraged for students to use one, right, while transporting their computer around, but they don't need to be carrying around books and textbooks and the like, because all of their textbooks, for the most part, are entirely virtual still. So the computer is where things are happening. All right, and so we are asking, students are allowed to bring a backpack, but just note that they will not have access to a locker. Lockers will not have access for students. And lastly, we're recommending, it's not a requirement, but we were recommending that all students bring their own little portable hand sanitizer. That's something that will be handy. There is a sort of required hand washing regimen every 2 hours. We're asking students to wash their hands, all staff to wash their hands or sanitize their hands. And while we do have hand sanitizers every 50 feet or so throughout the entire building, they're not inside of every classroom. And so just simply having a hand sanitizer, a little portable thing, you can find them readily available at most dollar stores or CVS stores. That will be a useful tool just for students to have. Team, do we have any questions here that we need to hit?
Regarding school issued Chromebooks and students that have started the year with their own laptop.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney. Yes. The current guidance right now from the district is that students will need to use a PGCPS issued device, and that if they are trying to use their own personal device, perhaps one that they've been using all year long, that they are likely to encounter network security issues and not be able to get online at the school. And there's certain network security features in place, generally speaking, to prevent that from happening. At the same time, we will have devices available for distribution for students. So when they show up, if a student shows up and they don't have a PGCPS issued device, we're going to have a process in place on the first couple of days of school for those students to be able to obtain a device and check one out for the remainder of their duration as being a PGCPS student. Okay, so if they haven't received a device so far, they will be able to get one in the opening days upon return. Hope that answers the question. Any other questions?
I'm sure you're going to get to this, Mr. Kauter, but we were providing clarification regarding if I selected hybrid, can I work virtually? And we shared in the chat that if you selected in person, you are to come to school in person throughout. So I just wanted to make sure we clarify that unless there is an appointment or such.
Correct. Thank you. And I don't have a specific slide to this, so yeah, I think it's a good time to hit on that right now. All families were given the opportunity to opt in or opt out. And what the district is asking and what we're asking is that if you've chosen one way, to commit to that one way. However, if come April 8th, you and your family feel like being in-person learning is no longer the best fit for your child, you will be able to opt out. But what we don't want is a scenario where a student is coming and going at will, because it's really difficult for us logistically. There's a lot of additional logistical plans. We need to have a realistic head count, an accurate head count of how many students are expected to be in the building on any particular day. And that becomes almost impossible if families and students are coming and going at will. And so we kind of ask you to stay consistent with one or the other. It is absolutely an option to opt out. If a student, however, has opted in and they don't show up to school in person on a particular day, but they do log in and participate virtually, they will still be marked present and will still be able to complete their coursework for that particular day. We just ask if it's going to become a pattern where you're feeling like you're going to be remaining virtual more often than you are coming in person, that you decide to then opt out at that point to make things easier for us logistically planning. Hopefully I clarified that.
Mr. Kauter, another question along the lines of Chromebook devices in the chat is, are students able to get devices before their cohort meets? And the response in the chat is those devices will be distributed at school at the time that the student actually arrives.
That's correct. We will not have a distribution period prior to arrival of students. Thank you. Okay, so that's, let's talk about arrival procedures at school. When students get to school, what to expect? First of all, first period begins at 7:45. So just know that the school day does not begin until 7:45. No students are needing to be there at all before then. They can show up at 7:43 and walk straight into the schoolhouse and go straight to their first period class. But many of our students, at least half who are opting in, are riding a bus, and those buses can arrive at various times throughout the morning. And we will have information. One of the last slides that I have here is talking about bus transportation, so we will hit on that a little bit. So first thing to know is no students are allowed in the building prior to 7 a.m. So if you're dropping a student off, they will not be able to allow it to enter the building prior to 7 a.m. And that's largely because we don't have staff in place prior to 7 a.m. contractually to monitor them. So between 7 a.m. and 7:30, however, there's going to be multiple locations where students will be designated to go. If they're 9th grade students, they should go, first of all, to the 9th grade campus. Please do not send any 9th grade students to our main building at the beginning of the school day, because that is not where they have class. Our 9th grade campus, if you aren't familiar, is on Bel Air Drive, about half a mile up the road from the main campus. And so the 9th grade students upon entry will go straight to the cafeteria between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. That will be our holding place for those students. 10th grade students will arrive, and if they get off the bus or they get dropped off, they should go into our small gym area, which if you're looking at the main entrance of the main building is on the left-hand side towards the gym lobby. And 11th and 12th grade students will be held in the cafeteria area, and which is on the right-hand side of the main entrance. And so those are the two areas where our main building students will be located between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. Again, no students allowed in before 7. Between 7:30 and 7:45 a.m., all students will be expected to move directly to their first period classes. There'll be no congregating in the hallways, I think something that students who are returning might often really be looking forward to is the opportunity to gather with their friends in the corners of the hallways and so on, like they would normally around their lockers. And while it pains me to say it, that's just not allowed anymore. Not this year, not with social distancing guidelines in mind. That is not an option. And we need all students to be able to adhere to that. So we will have people, security and staff, ushering students along, asking them to please move directly to class. If you are dropping off students with private transportation, we ask that you do not enter the main horseshoe entranceway of the main building, because that space is reserved for buses in the morning. We've had a couple of close calls in years past of families racing and weaving in and out of our buses, and it's always a dangerous situation for all involved. So please do not go there with your cars. The drop-off designation areas are the access road, which is the road that runs parallel to Highway 450 between the school and the main, the public library parking lot, or you can drop off in that parking lot by the BCPA Performing Arts Center Public Library over there as well. Those are the drop-off locations. Mr. Jackson, do you want to talk about where the drop-off locations are preferred for the 9th grade campus?
Sure. So same kind of concept. There is a semi-horseshoe that's out front that the buses are normally going through the bus loop, but typically parents will drop off the children slightly a little bit, maybe 50 feet away from where the main entrance is. That's normally where the bus drop off would be, but we don't want to crowd that area as the buses are going to and from that traffic. So there will be security out to direct where to go. So if any parents are confused about drop off area, we'll see staff members that are visible to assist.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. So those are the drop-off areas that we hope and where students will be designated to go upon arrival in the morning. Any student who arrives after 7:45 a.m. will be expected to report directly to class. We will have security at our main entrances to be able to monitor that and direct them accordingly. Okay. There will only be one entrance point for the 9th grade campus building and or the main building as well. And those will be the main entrances. And that will be very clear where students should go upon late arrival. During the school day, okay? Our school hours are 7:45 a.m. to 2:25 p.m. And I'm going to take 1 second here to quickly show our updated bell schedule, because the bell schedule we've had all along is going to need to change slightly now that students are coming in person. And this will affect all students regardless of in-person or virtual status, okay? What are the main reasons why we have to adjust the bell schedule is to accommodate our students who are in person, who are going to be eating lunch in the building. Right now in our distance learning schedule, we only need time for one lunch because everyone's eating lunch at home. But for us to be able to have a physically distant lunch, and we'll talk more about what that looks like in a minute, we need to accommodate more time. And so this will be our bell schedule throughout the particular day. It's going to be mostly familiar for students. Their times are slightly adjusted 5 minutes here or there. The main difference for our students for all students will be what time they eat lunch. Right now, all students eat lunch at 10:45 to 11:15, but that is going to change according to which class they have or where that class is located. So you'll see in the middle here, they're either going to have lunch at 10:35, 11:10, 11:45, or 12:20, depending on what their third period class is. And the way students will figure that out is when they show up to their third period class on the first day, starting on April 8th, is when this bell schedule goes live. When they show up to the third period class, their teacher will tell them what their new lunchtime is going to be on that particular day. And they may have a different lunch period on their A-day classes than their B-day classes. If they have different teachers, third period A-day and third period B-day, it's very likely they will have 2 different lunch times, but it's going to be within that window of time. Okay, this bell schedule will go live on April 8th for all students. What to expect in the classroom? Typically, we're looking at right now about 3 to 8 students on average in most class periods. So there'll be about 3 to 8 students in person, okay, along with a teacher. Some classes may have even fewer students than that, and some may have 1 or 2 more than that, but most are falling in that ballpark range. Again, face coverings must be worn at all times except when eating lunch. And let me just add the one slight caveat. There are some students who may have a medical exclusion for wearing a face covering. If that applies to your student or to you students who are online, that must be substantiated with medical documentation that is submitted to our school nurse and on file with our school nurse. If it is not on file with our school nurse, that student will be required to wear a face mask at all times. Like I said earlier, hand washing or hand sanitizing should occur every 2 hours. Our teachers will be accommodating for students for that throughout the school day. And like I said before, also 75% of our students are remaining virtual. So that means still the primary mode of instruction and student interaction is still going to be occurring via computer. Okay, even though 2 students may be in the same room with each other, they're still going to be interacting with each other textually, in some cases even verbally, through the computer, which I know seems kind of strange, but that is what it's going to be like. The only way for a student at home to communicate with a student at the school is through the computer. And that's the other reason why headphones are going to be an essential tool for in-person learning. Visitors, all visitors, any and all visitors must schedule an appointment to enter the building and to be seen. All right, and that is a departure that's been in place ever since March of last year, but that is an important procedure in place just so we don't have a lot of, just so we can plan appropriately and make sure we don't have a lot of people waiting or congregating in particular areas throughout the building. If you have an early dismissal situation for a student, please call the main office to make arrangements in advance. It'd be 301-805-2600 is our mainline phone number. Questions about this team that we need to hit or address?
So a couple of questions in the chat regarding lunch, around the type of lunch a parent can send with the child. Does it has to be completely disposable, or can they send, you know, like a salad bowl or something like that?
Thank you. Great question. About 2 slides from now, we're going to talk on lunch. If I don't touch on that, then can you just put it back in my brain? There, I'm bringing it right then.
Absolutely.
So also during the school day, you know, we have new hallway traffic patterns. In order for students to remain physically distant throughout the day, you'll see a lot of stickers and signs like this one here. This is right in our main lobby area. And we're asking all students to stay to the right, just kind of like a driving traffic pattern. Stay to the right-hand side when you're going this way, and stay 6 feet away from other people around you, forwards, backwards, sideways, wherever possible, okay? All hallways are marked with signs like this and other signs that are just reminding us all to remain physically distant. All hallways will also be 2-way traffic. We're not blessed with a building that's just circular in nature. We have a couple of, more like a spider with a lot of dead ends throughout our school. So we have to allow for 2-way traffic wherever we go. There is a kind of a new procedure related to restroom usage. And here's a little sign for this, but there's going to be no more than 3 people or students allowed in a bathroom at a time. We're asking, and all these signs will be posted on the bathroom doors. If a student gets into a bathroom and they see 3 people are in there already, we ask them to enter back out, to wait outside till someone leaves and they can go in. All right. We're going to have staff out in the hallways actively monitoring this, but not really actively monitoring inside the bathrooms, just from outside. We're asking everyone to, when inside the bathroom, to maintain a safe distance and to wash your hands for the 20 seconds that the CDC recommends. Masks, like everywhere else, are required, and all trash should be put in the bins. Common sense stuff. Lunch. You can see here, this is a picture of the main building cafeteria and how it is set up for lunch. We're not using standard cafeteria tables this year. We have replaced those tables with student desks. And we have approximately 65, 70 desks in our main building cafeteria, we do not plan to use all of them at any one particular lunch. But that is really what we're looking at for our main building cafeteria capacity. There's going to be, like I said earlier, at our bell schedule, 4 student lunches throughout the day. And so we're thinking roughly 50 students in the cafeteria during each lunch period, give or take how many students show up that particular day. You can see what that's going to look like right here. When it comes to outside food, what I mean by that is students are certainly allowed to bring a lunch from home with them on a particular day. And there are really no particular exceptions about or specifications about what kind of lunch they should or should not bring. We're not really particularly worried about what kind of cases that comes in. We would ask you to use common sense when it comes to that sort of thing. I know that there are concerns sometimes. My son's school has been going in person. They ask that anything that we bring doesn't come home and go back and forth throughout the day. We don't have any guidelines in place about that right now. But here's what we are asking. We are asking and expecting that no parents can drop off food during the day, no Uber Eats or DoorDash deliveries during the day. That has been a problem in years past, and that will be a big problem that we are not going to allow. And so I'm just going to say and bracket off right now with apologies that if food gets dropped off by DoorDash, it is not going to get to that student. It is going to be stopped at the door because we're trying to limit visitors, trying to limit transactions of things and items and people coming and going throughout the facility. That is something that we've typically not allowed in the past anyway, that we are especially going to not allow in this environment. And that is for everyone's safety, and we hope you'll understand that. We have no interest in trying to block lunch from students, but what I want you all to know is this: if a student forgets a lunch on a particular day, that lunches are being freely provided to any and all students who want them throughout each school day. And it's all lunches are going to be brown bag, grab and go variety. So there should be no concern that if a student forgets a lunch, that they'll have nothing to eat, because the lunch will be provided. I should have also said in the morning that breakfast is also provided in the same grab and go variety in the cafeteria and small gym areas of each facility that we have. So in that between 7:15 and 7:40, students will be able to eat lunch in the same space that you see right here in the mornings as well as during lunchtime. It's during this time also that students will not be required to be wearing masks while they are eating. We ask, however, if they're not eating and maybe they're just sitting and reading the news on their phones, that they would put their mask back on while not consuming food. Okay. Questions? Yeah.
So there are 2 things. One is we want to go back to make clear, if you do bring your own food, the food has to come ready to eat. We don't have microwaves or refrigerators available, so it needs to be something they can eat out of the bag. There's another question about dietary needs. The cafeteria can work with your child to try to meet their dietary needs, but keeping in mind that, again, during this time, lunch options are limited because we're doing bagged lunches. So they will definitely work with you on trying to provide lunch options, but that there will be limited options for special dietary needs.
Thank you for clarifying that, Ms. Priester. Any other additional questions or clarifications you want to make about lunch procedures?
Someone asked about sanitizing the cafeteria afterwards.
Yeah, great question. Our cafeteria team, along with our building services team, will be going through in between each lunch and after each lunch and doing a thorough sanitization. There's a specific health protocol and materials that they're using to clean for obviously ordinary food debris, but then also for protection against viruses. And we have, I should add, we've built in additional time into our bell schedule to accommodate for a little extra time for cleaning in and around these lunches for just that purpose. And so there's even a little bit of less independent work time throughout the school day to accommodate this additional cleaning that's taking place. So While there's a lot of ebb and flow throughout the school day between class and lunch and dismissal, the next major thing that I just wanted to talk about, and really it almost brings us to the end point of the presentation that I have here, is dismissal time. And what we're going to be doing is really only having 2 staggered dismissals in the main building. Probably all even numbered classrooms will go at one time, and then all odd numbered classrooms will go at another time. But dismissal is at 2:25, and then all students would either go on to get on their bus transportation, which will be waiting for them outside, or we ask that if they are being picked up, that be picked up in the public library parking lot only. And if they're walkers, we ask that they promptly leave campus and do not congregate around socially around campus. For those who are riding the bus, know a couple things. First, that the district is sending postcards by mail to all families within the next week or so, we've been told. Should expect them to arrive around during spring break. That information on that card will tell you where is your bus stop, what time the bus should be expected to arrive, and what bus routes you should be expected to get on. If you'd like to seek that information in advance and find it digitally and to see if it has updated, you can check the link here. Could a team member maybe, I'll try to link that in the chat later. Again, you do have access to this presentation where you can search the bus stop information on your own independently through the website there. I should also say that the directions that for dismissal that we're providing for students will be provided just verbally over the PA system. Mr. Jackson, do you want to speak at all to our dismissal procedures at the 9th grade campus and how, it's similar to what I already described, but maybe you want to indicate that?
Sure. So the way that the 9th grade campus operates is the students will get on buses that first come to them. So as they're dismissed by a particular floor, they'll find buses that will be available first come, first served. Then they'll go and be transferred to their proper bus number that's over at the main campus once they arrive there. So we have in the evening times or the afternoon times for dismissal, it's the shuttle buses that go to the main campus for that. So that's how that's designed.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Yep. And just so everyone knows, just I want to reiterate that point because I forgot to mention it. What Mr. Jackson was just saying is that if you are, that all 9th grade students find their bus home from the main building. So they get out at dismissal time at the 9th grade building, they catch any bus they want, and that'll take them, shuttle them over to main campus, where they then get on their actual bus home. And there's designated areas where those buses will be. There's always a little bit of a learning curve for students the first couple of days to figure out where their bus is going to be most days after school. And so we always hold buses a little bit longer than usual in these opening days and weeks to make sure all students get on their buses. We're looking at about 550 to 600 students total returning for in-person learning at Bowie High School, which for some of you may sound like a lot, but we're used to 2,400 students walking the halls of our school in any given day. And so that's a big adjustment for everyone. But remember also, we're cutting that in half, the A to J cohort, the K to Z cohort. So we're looking at no more than really 300 students at Bowie High School on any particular day. Remember, we also have our 9th grade campus, where we're expecting to be no more than about 75 students per day in that 9th grade campus, and all the remaining students would be at the main building. That's what we're looking at here. I want to bracket off this time to take the floor team for us to be able to address any outstanding questions. I know you've already been hammering them away in the chat, and thank you for that. But is there anything else we want to clarify before we close today?
There was one question about if you're switching from hybrid to virtual, we do still want you to notify us through your grade level administrator, because we would like to be able to update that information in SchoolMax, because Again, we want to be able to have a plan in place for contact tracing and update our protocols for security and sanitizing. Like we need to have the most accurate number of students who will remain in the building at all times. And SchoolMex is going to be one of our best routes for doing that. So while you may be marked present, we still would like you to send an email to Mr. Kautzer or your grade level administrator if you have decided to change your mind to go from hybrid to virtual.
Thank you. I would add even further a wrinkle into that. If you are a family that for whatever reason just recently opted in, please note that there will be a delay in arranging bus transportation. There's usually at least a 2-week period between when a family might get into the registration for transportation and when their route gets solidified. So if you just recently opted in within the last week, please expect a delay in being able to figure out what your bus transportation situation will be. And you will not have transportation immediately until the transportation department is able to update their records.
Mr. Kautzer, can you talk about the procedure for if a student or a teacher tests positive for COVID?
And while you're also speaking to that, health screening, how the procedures for health screening.
Thank you so much. And I believe we already sent home, for everyone who would have gotten a text message or an email for this meeting, you should have already received a letter that went home digitally. We will be resending it in the event that you didn't. What that letter says, and it's something that we're asking all parents to sign and all students to bring in on the first day of school with them. It's a health check letter that it simply clarifies things like, we ask all families to continue to monitor their children for COVID-like symptoms, that you promise you will not send your child to school if they are ill or exhibiting anything like COVID-like symptoms, and that you will keep them home to remain virtual, okay? We will not have any active health screening measures taking place upon arrival. For example, we are not actively taking student temperatures upon arrival. However, the district has just today announced new procedures in place for COVID testing, all right, that our nurses will be able to administer with consent only from parents. If a student is at school and presenting COVID-like symptoms, we will have a procedure in place for providing COVID tests to only those students who are presenting with COVID-like students. But let's say a student is at school and they are presenting COVID-like symptoms. They say to a teacher, hey, I think I've got a fever, I've got a cough, I don't feel well. That teacher would then direct the student to the nurse for further evaluation. And from there, the nurse is very likely to call home, okay? If consent has been given, we may do a COVID test, and we will actually be providing 2 tests. There will be a rapid PCR test, which does give very instantaneous results. And then there's a second test, which is the more familiar one if you've had a COVID test, which is I think like the nasal swab, which results tend to come in like a 48-hour time frame. Regardless of the result of those tests, or whether or not a test is even taken, the student who is ill would go into what we're calling our care or isolation room. And it's a room that we've designated in each campus where students would go and be monitored if they are ill or presenting COVID-like symptoms, or they can be monitored until parents and guardians can come and pick them up. We are going to ask that all students be picked up promptly, okay, in that event. And the nurse will call you, administration will call you if your student happens to be in that situation. But we are hoping that there should be almost no reason whatsoever a student would be at school and sick, because before sending them in the morning, we are hoping that you would have done that independent health check. How are you feeling? Are you ill? If so, if you're coughing, please stay home. You can fully participate in learning virtually staying home and be marked present and the like. So let's just err on the side of caution always. But additionally, the question also is about notifications. All right, how will we notify families if a child has come into close contact with someone who is verified as testing positive? All right, there is a notification system and set of guidelines in place that will be enacted, and we'll be following those guidelines closely. But I want you all to know that the CDC has a very specific definition of what close contact means. And that's if a student or staff member has been within 6 feet of an individual for 15 minutes or more within a 24-hour period. That is considered close contact. And if someone does not meet that guideline, has not actually been within close contact within that guideline, they may not receive notification. Okay, so we are expected to follow notification guidelines using those definitions from the CDC. Hopefully that answered the question. I said a whole lot.
You did. And Mr. Kauter, there was confusion, and I think that maybe I'm the one that is confused. Will there be on-site COVID testing occurring if we suspect a student of a positive or having any symptoms?
The testing, so there was just guidelines just released today, and they really haven't even gone out to the community. I think it may have been mentioned at a town hall if you attended that last night with the CEO and other executives. But the nurses will have access to COVID-19 testing, both the PCR rapid test and the other test of the swabs. It will not be administered to students randomly. It will only be allowed for students who are presenting as ill or with COVID-like symptoms, and only be administered to students who have been given consent by their parents in writing. Okay, and so look for additional guidance to be sent home to families, spelling all of this out, what I just said, and look also for the written consent form. In the same way that we're asking all form students to bring in the health inventory check form, we're going to ask you also all to complete this consent form to consent for testing, because we will not be able to do a COVID test on a student if their parents have not provided that written consent. Any other additional questions or concerns we want to touch on before we go on our way and enjoy the rest of this spring evening? I do want to reiterate just the slide that I've been hovering on right now, because I think there is a chance, there's just a lot of dates here, and I want to make sure we're all clear on them so students aren't showing up on the wrong day and we don't get overburdened with so many students showing up on a particular day when they're really not supposed to be there. So starting this Thursday, April 8th, only 12th grade students and SPED students with the last names K through Z will be allowed to attend if they've opted in. Then on Monday, April 12th, only 12th grade students and SPED students with last names A through J, they'll be allowed to attend. I want to also note that Monday, April 12th is a 2-hour early release day. So the first day for those students is an early release unusual bell schedule. We'll work through that. Then on Thursday, April 15th is when we start inviting all students. Okay, so most of the people on this call are gonna really not be allowed back in the building till Thursday, April 15th. And that's when all students K through Z can show up. And then Monday, the 19th is when all students A through J are allowed to show up. Again, please look at SchoolMax, please record the student's schedule and classroom numbers, so when they show up, they have a clear idea of where they're supposed to head. We'll have staff members there to direct them, but it's a lot easier if they know what classroom number they're looking for. Team, is there anything else we want to touch on before we wrap up?
Mr. Brown, do you have your hand raised?
the audience members are not allowed to unmute themselves, and so
Right.
they have to type
If
their
they could
question
put that in the
chat.
chat, if you could place that in the chat.
I hope everyone will understand why we didn't allow people to unmute themselves. That's just to keep things orderly and moving along.
Thank you very much. I received the no.
Well, I just want to thank all parents again. We're really excited. I just have to say, on a personal note, you know, one of my greatest joys in being working in the schools as an educator, as an administrator, as a principal, is being able to work with students one-on-one. My number one source of job satisfaction is mentoring teenagers and helping guide them in their way. And it's been really hard to do that over the last year. And so I am so excited to welcome these students back into campus and into the hallways and into the classrooms. I'm so excited to greet them and to help get back into that mentorship role that I really value and enjoy. And I know all of my colleagues share that. I know the teachers are excited to see the students. I also know, and I know this, that there's just a lot of collective anxiety for everyone as we transition into what hybrid learning looks like in this entirely new situation. You know, I want to ask for grace from everyone here because all of our teachers are completely learning how to do something new again. They've never taught in a hybrid classroom before. They've never had to teach students in front of them and at home at the same time before. And so please know that we are going to have technical challenges like we did at the very beginning of this school year as we transition into this new form. There's going to be technical challenges for our students getting online and the new internet network. Our computer systems may get jammed up a little bit when everyone's getting online and on Wi-Fi and in Zoom at the same time. So just please bear with us as we work through these transitions in these opening days and weeks in April. We're really excited to welcome all of your students with open arms and elbow bumps as we greet each other. So thank you all for joining us. This information will be shared virtually, digitally, via email, via text message, and posted on our website. So thank you all again. I want to wish everyone a restful spring break. For our students who are here, please get some rest, recharge your batteries. And we look forward to seeing you at the end of the third quarter, which ends April 9th, and then the start of our fourth quarter, which begins right thereafter. Thank you all and have a great night.